Hi everyone, my name is Eric Schurter and I'm the product manager for the editor group, and I'm excited to share with you a couple things that we have planned for the 14.9 milestone. As usual, I'll link to our planning issue in the video description so you can see the entire list of issues we have planned, as well as our milestone planning board. But we have a lot going on. I want to just highlight a few things real quick for you today, starting with the source editor, our underlying code editor that powers snippets, web IDE, the single file editor, the web editor, and various other aspects of the code editing experience around GitLab. We have been doing some deep dive investigation on the future direction for that editor component, and so we are going to be picking up some work to update the Vue application so that there is a more standard component that can access all the functionality of that core editor object from the Vue application. That's going to set us up nicely for a future investigation for using the source editor as to power comments or to spread across GitLab, as well as just streamlining the way we interface with it on the editor group. Moving on to Wiki, we have a couple backend related issues that we are working on in this milestone now that we have some increased backend bandwidth. So the first being adding a group level toggle to disable the wiki. Group wikis being a premium and up feature don't actually have a full parity with project level wikis. In one regard, they can't be disabled entirely. There's no toggle to turn it off. So we're going to introduce that at the group level so that if you don't use the wiki, you can turn it off. And I've talked about this before, but the wiki, when you're writing in Markdown, can be very long. It relies on our backend Markdown service to render the Markdown content at the time the page is loading. We've got an approach now that we think will improve the page load performance dramatically by progressively loading those Markdown files, and so you don't have to sit there and wait for 10, 15, 25 seconds for your page to load if it's really long. So looking for a great win there for those large Markdown files. Speaking of Markdown, our content editor, the WYSIWYG Markdown editor that we have on the wiki and we hope to bring elsewhere around GitLab, there's one little UX improvement that we're going to pick up in 14.9. We're right now the content editor, if you paste some Markdown content as into the editor, you will paste it in generally as plain text. So it won't get, the editor won't understand that as if you were typing the same characters in the editor, where I can type a pound sign and get a H1, or I can start typing a list using hyphens and it'll understand that and provide a rich visualization of that. When you paste large amounts of content into the content editor, it just comes in as plain text. So we have an approach now that we will be able to parse that markdown that's pasted on from the clipboard and put it in a rich preview. And last thing to highlight, again with the content editor, we have a larger body of work that we've been investigating right now. In 14.9, we're going to be taking the technical document that we've created, an approach to preserve unchanged markdown in the document, and we're going to build out an iteration plan. It'll probably take us 3, maybe 4 milestones to execute on this, but we'll be beginning in 14.9 to break it down into MVCs and implementation issues, and we'll be prioritizing those we'll be working on it basically as our top priority over the next few milestones. And what this means is that right now, when you pull a page into the content editor, it has to do a round trip from Markdown to HTML back to Markdown. And by necessity, that second step, the HTML to Markdown, when you're writing back out and saving the file, needs to rewrite the format of the Markdown content. This is a problem we ran into with the static site editor that ended up resulting in really noisy and hard to parse merge requests, where you would have, for example, like this screenshot here on the left, you've got a couple extra lines and you're using a certain numbering format, but the expected format when you're outputting is different. So even though you didn't intentionally change that list format, you're going to get that show up. That's going to show up in their diff. The approach that we have now, as I said, is going to take a few milestones to execute on, but we will essentially be only updating the nodes, the specific elements within the markdown page that you have edited intentionally, and leave the rest alone. So that means a lot more streamlined merge requests. It also unblocks us for a load of new improvements down the road where we can bring the content editor into issue descriptions or into the web IDE and have it produce more clean and more helpful changes. So again, our planning issue is in the video description. Thanks for your time and attention, and I will see you next month.